Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the CSNSR YouTube channel. A very happy new year to all the viewers. Just to introduce myself, I am Sarthak Garg, a practicing chartered accountant, and today I will be sharing my views on the topic legality of show cause notices issued solely on grounds of discrepancies between the service tax returns and income tax returns. So, you all must be aware that recently show cause notices have been issued to various taxpayers demanding service tax for the past period. So most of the show cause notices have been issued primarily on the ground of difference in turnover as per the service tax returns and income tax returns. So given the background, it would be worthwhile to note that earlier in the year 2020, the CBDT and CBIC had signed a memorandum of understanding for exchange of information. The said MOU was executed in order to facilitate the sharing of data and information between the two authorities on a regular basis. So demand under most of the show cause notices have been issued based on such data and solely on account of difference in turnover as per the service tax returns and income tax returns. So on perusal of such notices, it appears that in most of the cases, it cannot be denied that no further analysis or investigation has been done to examine such difference in turnover, and the demand has solely been raised on account of such difference in the turnover. So it would be pertinent to note that the provisions related to chargeability, classification, valuation, exemption under the Income Tax Act and the erstwhile Finance Act are different. And such differences may sometimes result in difference in turnover as per both the returns. So for instance, a transaction may be taxable under the Income Tax Act, and correspondingly, an exemption may have been granted to such transaction under the Finance Act. Further, different norms are adopted for revenue recognition under the taxation laws, which may sometimes result in difference in turnover. For instance, some service providers follow cash basis of accounting, commonly known as the receipt basis for recognition of turnover under the service tax returns. However, income tax returns are filed on accrual basis, and therefore the same may result in difference in turnover under both the returns. Another reason may be on account of the valuation provisions. So a particular transaction may be leviable to service tax on a different value as compared to the value for income tax purposes. For instance, abatement was granted under the erstwhile Finance Act on few services, and therefore service tax was levied on a reduced value. On the other hand, such concession may not be available under the Income Tax Act, and hence tax may be levied on the whole value of services. So you all must be aware that export of services were not liable to service tax, and sometimes difference in turnover may arise in both the returns on account of such export of services. So these are the broad reasons for which there could be a difference in the turnover as per the income tax returns and service tax returns. So as discussed earlier, demand of service tax in most of the cases have been solely raised on account of difference in the value of services as per the income tax returns and service tax returns. So it would be apt to note that it is a settled position of law that income reflected in the income tax returns or Form 26AS is not a proper basis to determine the service tax liability, and that too without establishing the nature of services and the purpose for which the relevant income is received. So in this regard, reference can be made to the judgment of Kuch Constructions, wherein the Honorable CSTAT held that difference in figures reflected in service tax returns and Form 26AS cannot be a basis for raising service tax demand without investigating the reason for such differences. So it was further held by the Honorable CSTAT that the revenue authorities should not presume that the entire demand, the entire differential amount was on account of consideration for providing taxable services. So in view of the same, the appeal filed by the SSC was allowed by the Honorable CSTAT. In this regard, useful reference may also be made to the various decisions of the Honorable CSTAT, where it has been consistently held that demand of service tax cannot be confirmed on the basis of amounts reflected in the income tax returns. Therefore, no demand of service tax can be made on the basis of income tax returns. So another important argument that can be taken is that no demand of service tax can be made on the basis of presumption and third-party information. It has been held by various courts that a show cause notice issued based on presumption and third-party information, that too without examining the books of accounts and records of the assessee, is not sustainable. In this regard, reference can be made to the judgment of Sharma Fabricators and Erectors, wherein it has been affirmed by the Honorable Allahabad High Court that a show cause notice based on presumption and third-party information, that too without examining the books of accounts of assessee, is not sustainable. Furthermore, reference can also be made on one of the oldest but landmark judgments, where the Honorable Supreme Court, in the judgment of Out Sugar Mills Limited, held that show cause notice issued on the basis of assumptions and presumptions, and the findings based thereon without any material evidence, but being based only on inference involving unwarranted assumptions, are violated by an error of law. Also, in the judgment of Kush Constructions, the Honorable CSTAT, while allowing the appeal of the SSC, held that the revenue authorities should not presume that the difference in turnover as per the income tax return and service tax returns is on account of consideration towards rendition of taxable services. So therefore, it can be very well argued that no demand of service tax can be made on the basis of presumption and third-party information. So moving on, the next argument before the tax authorities could be that no demand of service tax can be made, since the burden of proof of establishing the levy of service tax has not been discharged by the revenue authorities. So it would be apt to note that under the negative list regime, Section 66B of the Finance Act, the charging section, was introduced effective July 1, 2012. So as per the said provision, all taxable services provided in the taxable territory shall be leviable to service tax. So therefore, the minimum requirement to demand service tax from an assessee is to firstly ascertain as to whether an activity falls under the definition of service that is defined under Section 65B 44 of the Finance Act. If such minimum requirement is not fulfilled, then no demand of service tax can be raised. Further, in order to establish whether a particular service has been provided in the taxable territory or not, Section 66C of the Finance Act formulated the place of provision of service rules, wherein the place of provision of a particular service can be determined. So therefore, it is important that for determining the place of provision, the exact nature, description, classification of a service is to be identified. In case the exact nature, description, classification of a service is not identified, then the place of provision vis-a-vis the taxability of such service would become indeterminable, and accordingly, it would be impossible to determine whether the service has been rendered in the taxable territory or not. So therefore, the identification of exact nature and classification of service is important to levy service tax. However, it has been seen under most of the cases that such onus has not been discharged by the tax authorities. So in this regard, it would be pertinent to note that it is a settled law that burden of proof of establishing the tax of levy of tax is to be discharged by the revenue authorities. Reference can be made on the judgments pronounced by the Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Hindustan Ferrodo Limited and Cooperative Company Limited, wherein it has been specifically held that the burden of proof of establishing the levy of tax lies on the revenue authorities. So in this background, it can be very well contested that the show cause notices are unsustainable, wherein the burden of proof of establishing the levy of tax is not discharged by the revenue authorities. So as is discussed, the minimum requirement to tax an assessee for service tax is to first identify the nature of taxable services, and without discharging such onus, no recovery of tax would sustain. So in this regard, the Honorable CSTAT in the judgment of Deltex Enterprises held that in absence of specific allegation with reference to the nature of service, it is not tenable to hold an income of the appellant as consideration towards the taxable services. The minimum requirement to tax an assessee for service tax is to identify the nature of the taxable services. However, no service tax liability can be fastened on an unidentified services or an unidentified service recipient. So it was held that demand cannot be solely made on the income tax return without identifying the specific taxable services. So therefore, it can be very well contested that show cause notices where the nature of taxable services are not identified are bad in law and cannot sustain. So most of the show cause notices have been issued by invoking the extended period of limitation as provided under proviso to section 73 subsection 1 of the Finance Act. So it appears that most of the show cause notices have been issued in a prejudiced manner, and in most of the cases, proceedings have been initiated by invoking extended period of limitation and alleging that there is a willful suppression of material facts which have been leveled upon the taxpayers in such show cause notices. So it is a settled law that to invoke extended period of limitation, mere contravention is not sufficient, and what has to be proved is an element of fraud and suppression. There must be a deliberate attempt and dishonest motive on the part of a taxpayer to suppress the facts with an intention to evade payment of service tax. Also, there must be some positive act other than mere inaction or failure on the part of a taxpayer to invoke extended period of limitation. So in this regard, various courts from time to time have held that a mere mechanical reproduction of the language of the proviso to section 73 subsection 1 does not per se justify invocation of the extended period of limitation. So appropriate reasons for invoking willful suppression of facts have to be disclosed by the revenue authorities in the show cause notices. Further, in case the demand has been, in case wherein the demand has solely been raised on the basis of figures appearing in the income tax returns or Form 26AS, then in such a scenario, it can be very well pleaded that information of provision of services was well within the knowledge of the revenue authorities, as income tax returns or Form 26AS forms part of the government records, and therefore alleging willful suppression of facts cannot be sustained. So in this regard, reference can be made to the judgments pronounced by the Honorable Apex Court, wherein it has been specifically held that that appropriate reasons for invoking willful suppression have to be disclosed by the revenue authorities. So reference can be made to the judgment of Pushpam Pharmaceuticals Company, Padmini Products, and Bajaj Auto Limited. Furthermore, in most of the cases, the departmental audit for the same period has already been concluded. Despite the above fact, proceedings for the very same period have been again initiated by the tax authorities. So in this regard, it would be apt to note that it is a settled law that when books, records of an assessee are already subject to departmental audit, then extended period cannot be invoked by alleging willful suppression of facts. Further, no suppression of facts can be alleged if all material facts have been disclosed by the assessee. Therefore, such ascience invoking extended period of limitation ought to be bad in law and cannot sustain. So in this regard, reference can be made on the judgments of Honorable Supreme Court in Nizam Sugar Factory, in Pragati Concrete Products Private Limited. So to conclude the topic, I would say that proceedings which have been initiated by the revenue authorities on the sole ground of mismatch in turnover as per the service tax returns and income tax returns can be very well challenged and contested on the above plausible grounds after considering the facts and circumstances of each case. Further, as highlighted earlier, the MOU have been signed between the two statutory authorities for exchange of information, and the same may also lead to such mismatches and may end up initiation of proceedings in the GST regime as well. Therefore, in order to avoid any hassle in future, appropriate documentation, reconciliation should be prepared so as to deal with such proceedings that are likely to arise in the ensuing times. So trust the video and the presentation was informative. For any clarification, you may please note out my contact details. Thank you.